Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Friday. Okay, so the ladies opened with a very important issue that we have been battling as a country for a very long time, right? Immigration and the crisis at the border. So both President Biden and former President Trump went to Texas and they gave very different statements in regards to the crisis at the border. Let's go ahead and listen to them, and then I will give you a recap on what the lady said, because Joe Biden offered a bipartisan, you know, olive branch essentially to work together to try to solve this crisis. Let's listen to President Biden and then former President Trump.
The United States is being overrun by the Biden migrant crime. It's a new form of vicious violation to our country. These are the people that are coming into our country, and they're coming from jails, and they're coming from prisons, and they're coming from mental institutions, and they're coming from insane asylums, and they're terrorists. We have languages coming into our country. We have nobody that even speaks those languages. They're truly foreign languages.
So here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with this issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security bill. Let's remember who the heck we work for. We work for the American people, not the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. We work for the American people. And let's remember who we are. We're the United States of America.
Those were such powerful words from President Biden. I just wanted you guys to hear from both of the gentlemen. But I have to say, I have to definitely side with President Biden on this issue. One, he offered a bipartisan olive branch, which I think is something that shows extreme leadership in a time where he's being criticized on his stance with the war in Gaza. And the Republicans have essentially shot down the bipartisan efforts from the Democrats because they want it to be solved while Trump is in office, or I was going to say while a Republican is in office, but he's essentially the front runner because they've gotten rid of everybody else. But instead of waiting to I guess I was going to say kick Joe Biden out of office, but instead of waiting for Trump to get in office, which who knows what's going to happen in November, they're trying their best to solve it now, right? We don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. And so I appreciate that. I think that shows maturity. I think that shows leadership, because the only thing that Trump was doing was, criticizing migrants and immigrants who are essentially seeking a better life, right? I mean, that's the whole reason why the United States of America was founded, is that the settlers came over here, escaping persecution from the British colony, the British Empire, and the monarchy. That's why they refused to have a monarchy when they established the United States of America in 1776. So all the ladies weighed in on what both President Biden and former President Trump had to say. So Joy weighed in, right? Basically, of course, re-emphasizing the fact that it is the Republicans who are holding up the bipartisan efforts and the bill and legislation because they don't want to make Joe Biden look good, and they want Trump to kind of get all the glory for solving the crisis at the border, because that's a huge, talking point and policy issue on the Republican side. Sarah, who's the only independent at the table, but I agree with what she said, not just because she's an independent like I am, but she's saying that, that was a huge show of leadership from Joe Biden, essentially saying that he wants to come across the aisle and work with President Trump, because President Trump doesn't want to collaborate. He's not someone who wants to kind of give an inch. He thinks that machismo, that's a show of strength. But Sarah says, I feel like someone who shows strength is not someone who, puts their weapons up, but can put their weapon down. And Joe Biden being a sitting president, he's essentially saying that, let's solve this together. Anna weighed in, and she just basically said that, of course, she's a Republican and so is Alyssa, but she's going to vote for Joe Biden. And she said that she definitely appreciates Joe Biden because, Joy talked about how Trump is a racist and he's a xenophobe and all these things. And he plays to that side of his base. You guys remember he was calling to the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. And he said that the people who were marching in Charlottesville, there were, or the Nazis in Charlottesville, there were fine people on both sides. And he told the insurrectionists of January 6th that he essentially loved them. So he likes that very violent, for lack of a better word, very violent groups of extremists. And he's had a history of that with, being sued for not wanting people of color to live in his high rises in New York. That was way back in the 70s and 80s, I believe. But Anna just said that she thought, Trump doesn't want, he doesn't have a problem with people from Slovenia, which is where Melania is from, in Europe, Eastern Europe, but he only has a problem with migrants and immigrants who are speaking Spanish and coming from southern borders, or in her case, southern countries, right? Any type of Latin country, because she is from Nicaragua. And I've actually been to Leon, Nicaragua. The people there are very, very kind. They're very warm, but it is a war-torn country. There are gangs who essentially function as a cartel, and they are constantly battling with the government. And so, she coming from Nicaragua, she's seen firsthand the sort of violence, and she can speak to, communism up close. And so she just says that Trump only has a problem with people who have melanin in their skin. I mean, Sunny jumped in. She said the same thing. She's like, he doesn't have an issue with, like, let's say people from Canada or, coming across that border from the north. But her family is from, Puerto Rico and Haiti. And so she's saying that that's the issue that Trump has. And so Alyssa weighs in. She weighs in and says something that's very important, right? She says, for the first time in over a decade, that this issue, border security, ranks top number one, across the board for both parties. And she says that John Fetterman, who is a Democrat, he said that, basically the border security shouldn't be something that is demonized or shouldn't be looked at, negatively. He's, of course, speaking to his fellow Democrats, but he's saying that securing our borders makes us stronger as a nation. Sunny jumped in also and said that, certain illegal substances were not being brought in the large quantities, right? With like the huge boats and planes and things like that from these poorer countries, because they don't have the financial capital to do that. She said that the majority of the crimes involving the illegal substances, I'm trying to stay within the YouTube guidelines, are brought in from either United States citizens or people who are legally allowed to be here. And so she just said that, it's unfortunate that a lot of people who are seeking a better life, speaking to a lot of, poor immigrants who are fleeing war-torn countries, are being, demonized in the media. So I thought that was a really good discussion from, all the ladies. And then we had Bradley Cooper making headlines saying that he thought it was okay to not have clothes on in front of your children. I personally disagree, and I think that it's gross. They talked about friend poaching, which I thought was a cute segment. If you split in a couple, or have you ever stolen a friend before, which I'm sure all of us has. Dr. Jennifer Ashton, she weighed in on the Alabama court ruling that, embryos are children, and she discussed the impact that it had on the IVF treatments. And we've seen everyone from, a lot of women who want to become mothers, women who have, frozen embryos from Alabama. They've, gone in front of the news media or on their social media, just really crying, pouring their hearts out. I've even seen coaches, give statements from Alabama just saying that, they wanted grandchildren, and he's like, my son and his wife are having a hard time conceiving, and they shouldn't be criminalized because they might lose a frozen embryo, because the process of conception is something that is miraculous, right? Scientists, it's obviously, God ordained, and scientists trying to help couples to do so shouldn't be in fear of being locked up for, the science being not 100%, because humans are flawed, and the process is, is definitely under trial and error. IVF is fairly new, right? And so these new laws in Alabama are very worrisome. And they essentially criminalize and demonize people who are seeking to have children. So I appreciate, Dr. Annis Ashton saying that, we need to stick to the science. And the fact that scientists are such targets nowadays, it's problematic. But hopefully we can remedy that in November. So anyway, you guys, let me know your thoughts on this episode of The View. I really enjoyed all the segments. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk with you in the next one. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye.